Hi, my name is Ed Betcher. I'm a professional photographer with over 20 years experience, mostly weddings and special events. And in that time, I've photographed over 285 weddings, over 150 bar and bat mitzvahs, also done a bunch of portraits, studio portraits, location portraits. In addition to that, stock photography, travel photography, various commercial photography we'll talk about here on this channel, so stick around. All right, guys, today we're going to talk about Nikon cameras. Nikon's a big brand, and they have many camera models, both mirrorless and DSLRs. This particular video, we're going to talk about Nikon mirrorless cameras. Now, if you're like to get into photography, as a beginner, Nikon might be the brand for you. Nikon has a wide range of cameras for both the beginner with simplified menus and a lower price point, as well as high-end cameras with all the bells and whistles for professionals. So in this video, I'll be covering the Nikon mirrorless cameras, and what we're going to do is start with the Nikon DX line. The DX line is the APS-C cameras, which has the smaller 24 by 16 millimeter sensor. And if you're the kind of person who only brings out the camera for family gatherings and vacations, Nikon might be the brand for you. They have an introductory line with easy settings and a lower price point, including an entry point of lenses, meaning, a series of lenses with a lower price point. So starting with the Z30, okay, it's an APS-C with a 20.9 megapixel sensor, and it can take 11 frames per second in photo, or if you want to do video, we can do 4K at 30 frames per second, or 120 frames per second at full HD. In case you're wondering, full HD is what I'm filming at right now. And moving on, this Z30, all right, has a flip-out 3-inch screen. Now there's no viewfinder and there's no limit on the recording length, okay? So moving on to the Z50. The Z50 has the same sensor, same 11 frames per second for photo. Now the flip down screen instead of flip out is 3.2 inches, a little bit bigger. And it still has the same 4K 30 and the full HD at 120 frames per second. However, there's a 30-minute limit on recording with the Z50. The Z50 also has a small built-in flash, okay? So moving on, we have the ZFC. APS-C, 20.9 megabyte sensor, 11 frames per second photo. Basically, it's a Z50, okay? With a retro look, and it removed the grip, so there's no grip and there's no built-in flash. And it costs more money. All right, so that's line is the entry level, something for the beginners to start with. Now moving on to the full frame or the FX models. So these are the 24 by 36 millimeter size sensors. And all these models, I'm going to read you a bunch of basic specifications that all these models have. All of them have IBIS. IBIS is in-body image stabilization. They all have weather sealing. They all have a tilting 3.2-inch screen to look at. And they all have microphones and headphone jacks. All right. So, this is, definitely going to be a step up from the earlier line. Starting with the Z6 Mark II, 25.4 megabyte sensor. And this can take up to 14 frames per second. 4K 30 frames per second video. All right. Plus all the specifications I mentioned earlier. The Z7 Mark II. Now this has got a different sensor. This has got a 45.7 megabyte full frame sensor. And in addition to the increased resolution, it has a greater dynamic range. What does this mean? It means you have more information in the shadows, more information in the highlights. So increased dynamic range. You can still take 12 frames per second at this whole 45.7 megabytes. Okay, so that's for the still pictures. And you can also take 4K 30p video. So that's your Z7 Mark II. So the flagship, the top of the line pros, is the Z9. So the Z9, it has the still 45.7 megabyte sensor. It has got increased dynamic range. Now, this can go up to 120 frames per second for the burst shooting. It can't do that like all the way until the card's through, but for bursts, have 120 frames. That's pretty good. And instead of 4K, we can go up to 8K at 60p, meaning 60 frames per second. There is a limit of 8K at 30p of only 2.5 hours. So you can see where, now in addition to the frame rate going up, the autofocus has been enhanced. So you can get more frames and in focus at the higher frame rate. So another thing to think about outside of the cameras are their lenses. So Nikon has a range of lenses starting with the introductory series, and these are more, they have a lower price point. Okay, what does this mean? It's not lower quality. The actual elements are smaller. Because the elements are smaller, it costs less money to produce these elements, so they don't let in as much light. And these lenses, okay, they don't have all the weather sealing that the larger optics have. So what this means for the consumer is they pass the lower price and the cost savings onto the consumer. Okay, if you want to get the more pro lenses with your introductory camera, that's absolutely an option. You get to decide. And that's the nice thing about Nikon is they give you options, a lot of options. Another option that Nikon gives you is refurbished equipment. So something might be sold and it might just not quite be up to specs, so somebody sends it back. They make all the corrections they need, but because they can't sell it as new, they sell it as refurbished. So now that it's refurbished, it's a lower price point, but it still has the full warranty. Okay, so what do you guys think? You guys like this? How about hit the like and subscribe button for me, huh? That would be awesome. So in the next video, we're going to cover the Nikon DSLRs. All right, these are the digital single lens reflex. Okay, so we'll see you on the next one.